Dinner at the Martinez household had always felt more like a test of patience than a family gathering. But tonight, something felt different. I sat in silence, nudging my mother's paella around my plate, while my sister Elena, as usual, steered the conversation with practiced ease. And then I told the client our agency is the top firm in all of Chicago, Elena said, twirling her wine glass as she spoke. Being the creative director at Stewart & Brooks really opens doors. Mom lit up with pride. Mi hija brillante. I always knew you'd achieve great things. I took a small bite, the taste fading behind a wave of familiar memories, years of dinners just like this. Elena bragging. My parents exchanging worried looks whenever their less successful daughter sat across the table. And you, Carmen? Elena turned toward me, flashing that condescending grin I knew so well. Still doing that little freelance gig? Just working on a few projects, I replied calmly, my mind drifting to the documents I had signed earlier that morning. Oh, pobre Carmen, she sighed dramatically. It must be tough not having a proper job at 30. You know, I could maybe pull some strings at Stewart & Brooks. Start you off in the mailroom? Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. But Elena wasn't done. No, seriously. I just want to help. It's hard watching you still struggle like this. Remember how you used to say you were going to transform digital marketing? She laughed lightly. So, how's that going? Before I could speak, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, straightened her posture, and answered with that polished, professional voice of hers. Elena Martinez speaking. The room fell silent, and we could all hear the voice from the other end. Ms. Martinez, the new owner would like to meet with you first thing Monday morning. Elena's brow furrowed. The new owner? Mr. Stewart is in London this week. No, ma'am. The deal was finalized this morning. Stewart & Brooks has been acquired. I stood, taking out my phone. That would be me. The room fell into stunned silence. Elena's phone slipped from her hand, landing on her plate with a dull clink. What did you just say? She stammered, her carefully curated confidence unraveling. I pulled up the digital contract and slid my phone across the table. My little freelance company, Innovative Digital Solutions, completed the acquisition of Stewart & Brooks this morning. Purchase price, $380 million. Mom's fork dropped against her plate. Dad leaned in closer, adjusting his glasses to make sense of the screen. This can't be real, Elena said, her voice climbing. Stewart & Brooks is the biggest agency in the city. You couldn't have possibly had the resources? I finished her sentence. Actually, IDS has been quietly powering the top-performing digital campaigns for 2 years. Those projects I've been working on? Multi-million-dollar contracts with Fortune 500 companies. But I would have known. Elena protested. I'm the creative director. For traditional media, I corrected gently. The digital division reports straight to corporate. You never took the time to find out who was running the digital side, did you? Dad was still studying the documents, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. Carmen, these numbers. Would you like to see the quarterly growth reports? I asked, pulling up additional data. We've scaled by 300% year over year. That platform I created? Turns out companies are willing to pay top dollar for guaranteed campaign results. Elena snatched the papers from the table, her eyes scanning frantically. This has to be some kind of prank. You've been living in that cramped apartment, driving that old Beta. Living modestly, I nodded. Every extra cent went back into the business. While you were buying designer handbags and luxury cars, I was building something from the ground up. Mom reached across the table, gently holding my hand, her eyes misty. Mi amor, why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? I said quietly. Every time I tried, Elena would cut in, talking about her latest raise or her window office. Just then, Elena's phone lit up again. She stared at it like it had betrayed her, messages from co-workers flooding in. The announcement just went company-wide, I said. They're probably all asking the same question. Who is Carmen Martinez, and how did she just buy the company? This isn't fair, Elena whispered, her fingers trembling. I've worked there for 8 years. I earned everything I have. And you can keep it, I said gently. I didn't do this to get back at you. Stewart and Brooks still needs talented creative leads. But maybe now you'll understand. Success doesn't always wear designer labels or come with a corner office. The silence around the table was suffocating. Mom had risen to pour herself another glass of wine, likely needing a moment to process it all. Dad remained glued to the documents, muttering numbers to himself. Elena sat motionless, her dinner untouched, her phone continuing to buzz with message after message. Each notification seemed to hit her like a jolt. Monday morning, I said, finally breaking the silence. 9 a.m. sharp. I'll be addressing the entire staff. You can't just walk in and flip the whole company upside down, Elena finally said, barely keeping her voice steady. There are procedures, client relationships, established systems. I reached for my tablet and opened a slide deck. You mean the Thompson account? I asked. The one you're about to lose because your Gen Z metrics are crashing? Her head snapped toward me. How do you know that? I've had full access to all internal data for the last month during the due diligence phase, I explained. Your traditional strategies are decent, Elena, but they're failing to connect with younger consumers. That's why Thompson's been taking meetings with rival agencies. Her voice cracked. We have a pitch meeting with them next week. I know, I said calmly. And I'll be attending. I scrolled through more analytics on my tablet, highlighting the figures that showed our digital engagement had surged by 175% across every platform last quarter. My team had done remarkable work, and the numbers spoke for themselves. Dad finally tore his eyes from the financial reports. Common, these profit margins, they're unheard of in this field. That's because we're not just making ads, I explained. We developed an AI-powered platform that anticipates consumer behavior and adjusts campaigns on the fly. Those small side gigs I kept mentioning? I was fine-tuning the algorithm with some of the biggest global brands. Mom returned from the kitchen, her hands still trembling slightly as she poured herself a fresh glass of wine. But Mija, she said gently, all those nights you came to dinner looking exhausted, worried about covering rent. That was when I was pouring every dollar back into development, I said, finishing her sentence. Living in a tiny apartment gave me the budget to hire world-class engineers. Driving a beat-up car meant I could afford cutting-edge server systems. Elena's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen and visibly paled. The CEO of Thompson just emailed me asking about the ownership change, she murmured. They've actually been quietly using our platform through a third-party subsidiary, I revealed. Their engagement metrics jumped 200% over the past 3 months. That's why they're really meeting next week, to move their entire account over to us. Elena's eyes widened. But that account is worth $50 million. Closer to $80 million once we implement the full digital rollout, I corrected. And Thompson is just the start. Wait, she said, her voice shaky. Last month, you took that trip to Silicon Valley. You said it was just networking. I was meeting with major tech firms, I said. We're negotiating integration of our AI system across their ad ecosystems. Dad reached for his wine glass, his hand trembling. And all this time, we were worried sick about you. I gave a small nod. I was building something much bigger than anyone realized. It just didn't look impressive at dinner tables. Suddenly, Elena stood up, her chair scraping sharply against the floor. I need some air. Sit down, Elena, I said firmly. There's more you need to hear. She hesitated, then slumped back into her seat, visibly shaken. Starting Monday, I continued, Stewart and Brooks will operate under IDS Global. We're restructuring into specialized departments, traditional media, digital innovation, and AI development. And each of those divisions needs strong leadership. Elena looked up quickly, her expression tense. You're talented, Elena, I acknowledged. There's a reason your traditional campaigns win awards. I'm offering you the chance to head that division, if you're willing to accept that you'll now report to your little sister. The room was hushed, broken only by the endless pings of phones buzzing with updates. The industry was clearly reacting fast. Why? Elena finally asked, her voice unsteady. After how I treated you, why would you give me anything? Because, unlike you, I said evenly, I don't define success by how many people I can belittle. I define it by how many people I can uplift, including the ones who doubted me. Mom wiped at her eyes, tears escaping despite her efforts. Your father and we should have supported you more. You supported Elena, I said gently, because her achievements were easier to recognize. Promotions, titles, offices with views, they're tangible. What I was building was harder to explain. But maybe now you see why I kept saying the future of marketing isn't in billboards and magazines. It's in predictive AI and real-time engagement. My phone vibrated. A message from my executive team lit up the screen. The press release goes live in 5 minutes, I told them. Major tech news sites are already lining up interviews. Elena stared at her hands. All those times I offered to get you an entry-level job, and you were already running a company bigger than the one I worked for. Ironic, isn't it? I said with a faint smile. While you were offering me a job in the mailroom, I was finalizing the purchase of your agency. Dad cleared his throat, his voice thick. Common, we've been completely wrong. You have, I agreed. But that's behind us. What matters now is whether Elena is ready to be part of what comes next. I'll be announcing the new leadership structure Monday morning. I need her answer before then. Elena looked up, her eyes glistening. All these years, I truly believed I was better than you. You were better at navigating the old system, I admitted. But I was rewriting the playbook. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. So tell me, are you ready to evolve, or should I start interviewing for a new division head? At that moment, every phone around the table buzzed again. The press release had gone out. Elena picked up hers and read the headline aloud. Tech visionary Carmen Martinez acquires Stewart & Brooks in $380 million deal. AI platform poised to disrupt advertising industry. She slowly set the phone down. I need to review the new structure. I reached into my bag and handed her a folder I'd brought in anticipation. Here's everything, including your new compensation package. Her eyes widened as she scanned the offer. This is 3 times my current salary. Innovation pays well, I said simply. Especially when you're on the right side of it. Mom began clearing the plates, her hands still unsteady. I'll make coffee. I think we could all use some. Make it strong, I said, pulling out more folders. We're going to be here a while. Elena needs to understand how we're moving forward before Monday's announcement. As Mom disappeared into the kitchen and Dad kept combing through the paperwork, Elena looked over at me, this time not with rivalry, but with something that looked a lot like respect. How did you manage all of this without anyone knowing? I leaned back in my chair, allowing myself the smallest of smiles. By grasping something you never did, Elena. Real power doesn't come from telling everyone how successful you are. It comes from quietly building something while they underestimate you. Our phones buzzed again. Stock updates. Stewart & Brooks shares had jumped 40% in after-hours trading. But the real shock was the news breaking about my company. IDS Global, which had never been publicly listed, had just announced its IPO. Elena stared at her phone. You're taking IDS public. Monday afternoon. I nodded. Right after the merger announcement. Initial valuation, $2.8 billion. From the kitchen came the crash of a coffee cup hitting the floor. Maybe we should switch to decaf, I called out, half smiling. After all, we've got a lot to cover before Monday. I turned back to Elena, locking eyes with her. You should come early.